Hello, welcome to the European Open briefing for Tuesday, March the 7th. I'm Rafi Barajian, currency analyst at xm.com, and we're going to be taking a look at what's happening in the currency markets today. So most currencies are fairly stable this morning, although we did have some volatility yesterday. Of course, much of the focus is now on this week's non-farm payrolls report, which is going to come out on Friday out of the US. So if we have a pretty good result, then we will most certainly, pretty much going to confirm a rate hike on March the 15th by the Fed. Despite those expectations, though, the dollar hasn't really advanced too much against the yen. There is some uncertainty surrounding President Trump's presidency and the lack of clarity still about the promised tax reforms. The main news this morning was the Reserve Bank of Australia's announcement that it held rates unchanged at 1.5%. The Australian dollar bounced higher after the announcement. The euro is also firmer today. Yesterday, of course, the euro had come under pressure due to the political developments in France. The pound, on the other hand, continues to struggle as the House of Lords are still debating the government's Brexit bill. But let's start with the dollar. We can see in the chart in orange here, it's currently trading just below the 114 level. And even though we've got those Fed rate hike expectations, there is some market nerves due to President Trump's leadership style, and we do have that investigation that's looking into whether or not President Trump's campaign team had any contacts with Russian officials during the elections, and the fact that we still haven't heard much about the tax reforms, and it is looking increasingly likely that those tax reforms might not pass through this year, and even if they do, they probably won't come into effect until next year. But also the fact that, based on what markets have seen from President Trump's style, there are some concerns that maybe Trump might get too distracted with other affairs and might not prioritize the tax reforms. Yesterday we did have stronger than expected US factory orders, though this had little impact on the dollar. But despite the fact that dollar is fairly flat, gold is struggling. We can see here in the purple in the chart, it's currently trading at around 3-week lows, and that's mainly due to the imminent Fed rate hike that we'll likely get next week. Moving on to the Australian dollar now, the RBA held its policy meeting today and kept interest rates at a record low of 1.5%. The RBA maintained its neutral outlook and was mostly upbeat about growth. It said most measures of business and consumer confidence are at or above average. And it's also said both headline and underlying inflation will likely pick up, though underlying inflation will increase more gradually. But despite the fact that, despite the muted inflationary pressures, the RBA is looking like it won't be cutting rates again, and that's mainly due to very high household debt in Australia, plus of course the housing boom. The central bank is worried that cutting rates further would make things worse rather than and would provide minimal boost to rebalancing the economy, which it said that the transition from resource-based economy to increasing exports to a wider range of products, that it's progressing nicely. So we saw that the Australian dollar bounce above the 0.76 level against the dollar. There are some concerns. We saw the Aussie meeting resistance at 0.77, and we also saw that at the beginning of the year, the fact that the Aussie had been firmer, that it have a negative impact on trade in January. So the Aussie might struggle to rise too significantly despite the neutral outlook of the RBA. Looking at the euro now, we can see yesterday it did fall a little bit on those concerns about what's happening with the French elections. There was a poll in France that showed that the former Prime Minister Alain Juppé, voters would favor him over the Republican Party's other candidate. Well, François Fillon, who won the presidential candidacy over Alain Juppé, but now voters are saying that they would actually prefer Juppé, and he would likely beat both Macron and Le Pen in the first round. But Alain Juppé ruled out replacing Fillon, so that had a negative impact on the euro. But today it's currently trying to once again break above the 1.06 level, and we're likely to see further volatility for the single currency in the run up to the elections at the end of April. Moving to another currency that's been hit by political uncertainty, we've got the pound. The pound hit 7-week lows against both the dollar and the euro. Of course, the government hasn't confirmed the exact date or when they will trigger Article 50. The House of Lords is continuing to debate that bill. They already voted in favor of an amendment that would guarantee the rights of EU citizens in the UK. Today they will vote on another amendment, which is also likely to get approved, and that is to force the government to seek approval of both houses of parliament before concluding any talks with the EU in the Brexit negotiations. Those will likely get voted down in the House of Commons, but despite that, even though those amendments might not pass, it is unsettling the markets, as the government still hasn't clarified when they will go ahead and trigger Article 50, plus the fact that more and more data is showing that the UK economy is slowing down. We had the British Retail Consortium publish its retail sales figures for February, which showed the sales falling again for the second month, and that's raising concerns that the UK economy might not be able to sustain the high growth rates that it saw right after the Brexit vote. Moving on to today's economic calendar, it's going to be a fairly quiet day. We already had the RBA announcement. German industrial orders fell sharply in January, though this had little impact on the euro. Though it should be noted that that was still a pretty big fall for Eurozone's largest economy. UK house prices also fell below expectations in February. We've got the GDP revisions coming up for the Eurozone. We've got the dairy auction later today, which could have an impact on the New Zealand dollar. In the US session, the main focus will be on Canadian trade data and IV PMI. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.